So I wanted to talk about PhD de-stressing techniques that I think actually do work. They work for me, and I think they work for almost everybody that's in this profession. So what are these three things? There's three things that are really, really important. The first thing, by the way, if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Masek. I'm a associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. All right, so the first thing that I think is super important is to not take yourself so seriously. We have this tendency to overthink things. We have this tendency to sort of imagine that you always have to be at the A level and that you always have to be doing everything perfectly, right? Almost all of us have been trained for a very long time to always get A's, right? We're always getting A's, we're always going through. But realizing that it's not only about the getting the A, but also just kind of enjoying the process and getting to the point where you're like, I'm just pretty good with who I am. I am doing okay. I don't need to prove to anybody else. I can actually enjoy what I'm doing. Enjoyment often means to sort of pull back just a little bit. I'm not saying like, not do anything, but I'm just saying pull back just a little bit and enjoy the process and have fun when you're actually in it and doing the things that you do, right? Like you can do a lot still by just pulling back a little bit. And I think that is important. The other thing with sort of not taking yourself so seriously is just kind of smile along with the process. Realize like we all go through all of these sort of failure moments where you're doing terrible. I have failed so many times with this and it's crushing. So the idea is to think about how you can minimize that sort of feelings that you get where you get crushed. And so that's where you distance yourself and not take yourself so seriously from the whole process, right? It's really very critical to distance yourself from the process and not take yourself seriously. So that means, in a lot of ways, discrediting the profession, right? Like removing some of the quote unquote legitimacy from it has so that you can work within the constraints and just say, hey, it's just a job. We're just having fun. We're playing with words. We're just goofing off. There is nothing very serious with what we're actually doing. Now, I'm going to point out, there are a lot of really important things that we actually do, but the idea is never to take yourself seriously, right? So if you were, the large CEO of Apple or, a large company or something like that, I would sort of encourage the same sort of advice because there is a lot of problems that you experience along the way. And if you start absorbing those problems, if you were a police officer, if you were somebody that looked at crime scenes all the time, the advice and the thoughts would all be the same, right? Like you would just be like, all right, let's just kind of not take ourselves so seriously through this because it's just so painful, right? So just have fun, enjoy it. The second thing I think is super important is to get as much exercise as you possibly can. We have all sorts of natural endorphins or whatever the whole brain chemistry that happens when you get exercise, when you go for walks, when you move around, right? The moments when you feel dumpy or when you're hungry, when you are tired, and when you're not getting any exercise, right? If you sort of recognize that as just physiological or biological responses to you, get up and move around, right? Like target every 45 minutes or every couple hours or whatever your target is to go move around, and then go for long walks, go for runs, whatever, anything. I swim right now. It's changed so many different times for me. I used to work out. I used to go for runs. I used to do like crazy sort of boot camp stuff, whatever. All of that stuff is super important to sort of maintaining a level of functionality. And I believe in that as all get out. It's super, super important. And the last thing, the third thing, and this seems like really kind of stupid, and anybody else from outside of the profession is not going to understand what I'm talking about, other than perhaps an entrepreneur that is working for themselves, is to have routine as much as you can and compartmentalize things. And that's where it's sort of like not taking yourself so seriously. So turning off your, your work at 6 o'clock or whatever the time is that you turn off your work. Not address anything between different times. Make sure that you brush your teeth. I know that seems like really silly, but that's actually a thing that you think about, right? Like, should I have time to brush my teeth? Make sure you have showers, like really basic functionality stuff, and blocking time for that. That's important, right? I used to know somebody that was quite famous, sort of a famous academic, and he or she would take time off just to go for a swim, and then you couldn't contact that person between that time. It was during the day, and you couldn't contact that person during that time. And there's like all sorts of things that we do, and you have to sort of realize that your life you can only do so much. You can only function so much, and you got to make sure that you're just doing the best that you can do given with who you are. And as you realize that we have limitations that we could do, then as you sort of compartmentalize your life, and that's different for everybody. It's absolutely different for everybody, and you have to sort of remember that. It's different for everybody. If you have more obligations, more things going on in your life, it's going to be a lot more. You're going to have to compartmentalize more. That is going to be so important for you, and just function as you get along, right? Like, just do your thing and realize whatever you do is good enough. And as long as you're having that sort of mentality, I'm going to just keep going forward and look for ways that you can just do your thing given with who you are. And if it means it's not going to be enough, as sort of what the market demands, so be it, right? Like, that's what you could do. You find something else, and you sort of work within those boundaries, work within what you can actually possibly do. And as you get used to that, as you sort of say, hey, I'm good enough as long as I'm writing one word or I'm doing one thing, that's all that matters in the long run. And you keep coming back to that idea. It's just, I am good enough. I can do a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. And anybody else that says anything else, or, looks at you sideways or anything like that, that's their problem. That's not your problem. Remember that as you go through the profession, you are functioning the way that you need to function at this moment. And that means, hey, if you need to go get therapy or block off time to go get, a lunch or whatever, that's what you do. And then you function within those sort of moments. So those are the most important things. Remember that not to take yourself seriously in any sort of way. I mean, you could see I'm trying not to. Make sure that you are getting some sort of form of exercise and eating, sort of the normal stuff, and then sort of block out or schedule put boundaries on everything, right? Like, function within those boundaries, and then know whatever it is that everybody else wants of you or whatever, you can't do nothing about it. That's your life. Just function, do well, and that's it. Just live your life, have fun, enjoy the process. And the reason is all of this, right? There's going to come a point where if you give all of your stuff away, right, and you're just always sort of functioning at the highest level all the time, and you're not having time for yourself, there'll become a moment in your life. It might not happen now. It might not happen in 5 years, but sooner or later, you're just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I just got to function and be who I am. Got to be happy, right? And that's the most important thing as you sort of go through this. So give me a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. And hopefully this helps with de-stressing and functioning in this world as an academic or PhD or researcher or whoever you are. All right, take care.